Folks, what's up? It's Pete Thorn. Welcome to my studio. Hey, this is a video that I've been super excited to get edited and get out for a while now. It's actually going to be a two-part series, so this is part one. Just before the lockdown, I was invited over to Mr. Bob Clearmountain's Mix This studio here in LA, and I was allowed to interview him and ask him all kinds of questions, and he actually mixed a song for me while I was there. Now, Bob, of course, legendary mixer, engineer, and producer, involved with, for a long, long time, everybody from the Rolling Stones to Bruce Springsteen, David Bowie, Roxy Music, and the list just goes on. He's just a legend. So in this video, I get to ask him all kinds of great questions about all the records and artists that he's been involved with over the years. For you guitarists out there, which is most of you, I think, stories about Stevie Ray Vaughan, Nile Rodgers, Keith Richards. Also, if you're an aspiring mixer or engineer, Bob kind of pulls the curtain back and lets us in on how he organizes his mixing console, also how he applies effects. There's info on things like vocal tuning. Just a ton of great information in both this part one and also in part two. So just a little disclaimer before we get started here. I took a camera with me that day over to Bob's place, and I didn't have an assistant. I was working alone, and this camera was new to me. The video's pretty grainy from one of the camera angles. So I apologize to Bob for that. I should have taken a camera I was more familiar with, but you guys that watch my channel know it's kind of homebrew. I like to think it's charming. All right, without further ado, here we go. Mr. Bob Clearmountain. I'm here with the legendary Mr. Bob Clearmountain that has mixed this studio, and your cat was just walking all over the console.
Yeah, who knows? I'll find out later what buttons it pushed.
That's old school analog problems, right?
Yeah.
Nice environment here, actually, just the fact that you got so many animals around. There's cats and dogs and everything, because this is built in your home, right?
Based on my house.
A beautiful studio, and so thank you for having me here. I appreciate it.
You're so welcome. Come by anytime.
Thank you. Well, we've had fun here over the years, right?
We have.
Bob's legendary for his great holiday parties. Looking back in the 70s, when I think of the music of folks like Fleetwood Mac and Heart and artists that you actually became really well known for working with, like Bowie and Springsteen, the recordings and mixes were quite different sounding than what happened like later on, just after that in the 80s. The sonic punch and excitement that you helped create on tracks like Born in the USA, Summer of '69, Let's Dance, Start Me Up was a fresh new sound, like a larger than life sound. Was this like a conscious decision, like trying to push the tracks beyond what was actually maybe there on the tape, like create even more excitement?
Yeah, I guess so. We were trying to make something big. We wanted something that jumped out of the speakers, basically. I don't know if it's that much different than what anybody making a rock record tries to do. But I think we were fairly successful, and luckily I worked with some amazing artists. That's the thing that helped me a lot, because somebody like Bryan Adams was brilliant. Just his arrangements and the way his songwriting was really great for the type of records we were making. Springsteen, of course, that everybody knows how great his things were. The Rolling Stones, I grew up listening to the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
So that was just fun for me to be able to work with a band that I'd been listening to seemed like most of my life.
Right.
And but they're all big artists. In fact, the little story from Springsteen, in the early days, he didn't do any videos for a long time. When MTV first came out, the first video he did was Born in the USA, and or no, it wasn't Born in the USA. It was Dancing in the Dark, and I asked him before that, when we were working on The River, I said, "How come you never do any videos?" He goes, "Well, televisions are very small, and my thing is bigger than that."
Interesting.
Like he played arenas and stadiums, and so it was, big crowds of people, and he never felt that a little TV could actually get across what he was about.
That's fascinating, because I almost feel like he gets bigger the bigger the crowd gets. He just rises more to the occasion.
He does.
It took seeing him. We did a gig with when I was playing with Chris Cornell, and Springsteen was headlining at Pink Pop in 08 or 09, something like that. And it was then when I saw him that I understood.
Yeah.
Like he is larger than life, and he holds that crowd in the palm of his hand in
Exactly.
60,000.
Yeah, it was big, you know. And on the Born in the USA album, he always wanted the drums to be big, you know.
Yeah.
As big as I could. Bobby, make that snare drum as big as you can make it. What's that? What that little gated trick that you're doing? I want more of that.
Okay, I've got to ask you.
Right.
I've got to ask you about that. I remember attending a Mix Magazine event at Apogee Studio a few years ago, and it was you and Chris Lord Alge.
Yeah, boy.
Which was really fun because he has such respect for you, and you guys are kind of polar opposite personalities. He's a very big, loud New York kind of personality, right?
And I'm not.
Even though you came up in New York as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a lot of respect for him too, actually.
That's what's so nice about that event, was I could
really
tell.
do.
That you guys have that great mutual, and I know you're great friends, right?
Oh yeah,
it's going way back. So he asked you what Bryan Adams at this event. He asked you what Bryan Adams' first response was when he heard the mix of Summer of '69 for the first time. I think Chris's comment was, "It must have been like I got my first real snare drum." Because that at the beginning is so epic, right? And so then I thought about many of the mixes from that era that you did, these epic classic tunes, and I thought Born in the USA, now get on it down with the snare drum, you know, and then Start Me Up, similar too, that big snare drum at the beginning. And so was that a thing? It was almost like a wake up call, like, hey, listen, like pay attention, like, it's time to rock.
Yeah, kind of, that's it. You know, you got it. You're absolutely right. It's interesting with Start Me Up that people don't realize that first snare beat, it's actually it's like a gated plate, but I did it manually on the computer.
Yeah.
You know, I just did a quick cut on a really long reverb because he plays it on a kind of an odd beat. It's he plays it on one.
Right.
And I thought it was an odd way to start the song, you know, and I thought, well, I want to make more of that, so I put this big kind of explosion on that first snare beat.
One of the very first records I remember going out and buying with my own money.
Really?
Yeah, and such an epic. I mean, I just am in love with that record. And to me, although it's a new era of Stones in the '80s, it's still classic Stones. When I think about those songs like "Waiting on a Friend" and "Start Me Up," I guess "Start Me Up" amazing too because it starts with the chorus, right?
Yeah.
So big snare drum and the hook and the chorus. It's incredible. So that must have been a real thrill making that album with those guys. Anything you remember about that mix?
It was the album was tough because it was mostly outtakes that they had reworked, things that you know they went through and they needed another album, but I guess they didn't want to spend a lot of time writing more songs or something. So they, between Mick and Keith, they went through things that they hadn't finished from previous albums, things they hadn't put out, and they said, and they did edits and they added some instruments and Start Me Up. He was, in fact, we did the lead vocal. He had just written the lyric to that.
Like that day or something?
Yeah, the day before. In fact, he changed the lyric while we were doing it because originally it was called Start It Up. It was about a motorcycle. He goes, yeah, the song's called Start Up. And he's singing it to me in my ear in the control room, you know. And I said, yeah, man, great. He sings really loud. And I was like, yeah, that's fantastic. Now why don't you sing it out in the studio? You know, and he goes out and he's singing Start It Up. And then at some point, a couple of times he says, Start Me Up for some reason. And he said, he explained to me that it was about a motorcycle. You know, it was like this motorcycle song. And he said, Start Me Up. And I said, you know, that sounds really good when you say Start Me Up.
Wow.
And he listened to it and he goes, oh, yeah. And so then he changed it to Start Me Up.
And there you have it.
Yeah,
the true story.
Yeah. Because, you know, plus the fact that it's a bit of a kind of a sexual idea, you know, Start Me Up, the whole.
Right.
So it kind of weaves in together.
It all works.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was that the first thing you did with Rolling Stones? So didn't you do a mix of Miss You? Or?
Miss You, yeah. The first thing I did for them was that was on the Some Girls album, I believe. They had finished the album actually, and they wanted like a 12-inch dance mix.
Okay.
And because I'd worked with Chic and Sister Sledge, and we had done I'd done a lot of stuff like that, where extended versions of songs.
Yeah.
Where for dance clubs, and they wanted something like that, so I did an extended version of the song.
Okay.
In those days, nowadays people do remixes and they take out most of the instruments and add their own instruments. Well, back in those days, we just do breakdowns, and we'd go back and we get past the solo or whatever, and then go rewind to the beginning of the song, and then do like a breakdown, and then build it back up again.
Okay.
That kind of thing. So we'd end up an extended version.
Right.
Just from doing edits, and so that's what they wanted, and that's what I did. But then I did a thing on the 12-inch. Originally there was this vamp, and it just ended.
Okay.
Right, and I thought well, it would be nice to hear the chorus come back,
Right.
Instead of just this vamp, you've sort of forgotten what the song's about, and so I kind of chopped the chorus back in, and so they really liked that, and the label really liked it, and so he said, "Well, do a single like that, only chop it down so it's single length."
Oh, cool.
Yeah, because originally it didn't have the chorus at the end. That was nice. Unfortunately, I didn't realize I didn't look, or the track sheet wasn't marked properly, and so I didn't realize there was a sax on it, so I left the sax out.
So a ton of mixers and producers and engineers cite you as a major influence. Who were some of your early heroes?
Oh, well, that would be people like Ken Scott and Eddie Kramer, Glenn Johns, of course.
Yeah.
These guys that made these the British rock records, with the Joe Tarja from Sigma Studios in Philadelphia, guys that made those great Philly records. I love the way they sounded.
Sure.
Jeff Emmerich, of course, and all the people that did the different guys that did the Beatle records. And I was a big fan of British rock.
Yeah.
Growing up, and so Glenn and Andy Johns in particular.
Yeah, for sure.
Those guys were they made some incredible sounding records.
Yeah. Well, and
Glenn still makes incredible sounding records, I think.
Right.
He's still going.
And you cited Ken first off, which he worked extensively with. Worked on the White Album, didn't he? But then I think Bowie, and then just a few years later, you were there.
Yeah.
Right. So,
yeah.
Yeah. So then a few years later, when you're pushing into the 80s and kind of doing your thing, and your thing's really taking off, I wonder, did you listen much to your contemporaries? Like, I always wondered if mixers, there was a healthy competition then, as I remember, amongst like guitar players
Sure.
and musicians, but would you listen to, say, the drum sound on In the Air Tonight or something?
Yeah, well, I was going to mention Hugh Padgham.
Hugh Padgham.
I was a big fan of Hugh Padgham, and then finally we met one day. We became like best friends.
Oh, that's awesome.
I mean, I'm still really good friends with Hugh. We don't hardly ever get a chance to see him anymore.
Huh.
But yeah, we were both. It turns out that he was a fan of mine too, which is funny because we spent many nights just locked in conversation.
Wow.
We just saw things very in a similar way.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the sound of his records as well.
Right, and that'd be one of them was the famous Phil Collins drum sound.
Yeah. Well, you guys were both pushing drums forward in a way
Yeah.
that hadn't been heard before, right?
Yeah.
So that's interesting. But you started, I mean, when I think about like Power Station and working with like Kool and the Gang and Chic and doing those records, how did you take what you learned maybe from those R&B sessions and push that into the rock world?
Yeah, well, I thought I was really lucky in that sense because I was just a rock kid and I never really thought about. I mean, I loved listening to R&B records on the radio. I loved the Supremes and the Four Tops and all those Motown things. But to me, I didn't really identify with them much, other than enjoying when they came on the radio. But then in the 80s, the 70s, I worked at Media Sound, which is they did mostly jingles in the daytime and then R&B records at night, like Stevie Wonder and Benny King and the Kool and the Gang. I got to work with Kool and the Gang a lot. Stevie Wonder, I used to hang out on their sessions. I was a new, it was really new there and I assisted all during the day. And I made friends with the producers, Malcolm Cecil and Bob Margoloff, and I used to just get coffee and stuff for them,
Right.
and they let me hang around on the sessions if I was quiet. And I just loved watching Stevie Wonder work. It was just
Wow.
such a genius, of course. And I loved his records too.
Yeah.
And but that big influence, that's just something about the bass and the drums of R&B records.
Yeah.
Which I learned from working on a lot of those types of records, sort of parlayed into the rock world. I think when I got back to when I finally started making rock records,
Yeah.
I think that thing became part of me, the R&B thing, and it was sort of the combination of that helped me in the rock world as well.
And you must have had a good connection with Nile Rodgers as well.
Oh, for sure.
And then moving forward into the Let's Dance, just David Bowie era, that was obviously like, the two of you guys, along with Bowie, making that sound, right?
Well, that was interesting because Chic were, Nile was a rock guy, actually. He used to hang out with Hendrix in the Village, and when he was a kid. And he was a big rock fan. He was a big Roxy music fan.
Oh, really?
And he was a big fan of British rock as well, even though his main thing was R&B and jazz. I mean, those guys, Chic was originally more of a jazz oriented band. They were such incredible musicians.
Right.
And they're listening to pop radio, and they're hearing these disco records becoming huge, massive hits in the late 70s.
Yeah.
And they thought, shit, we could do that. That's not hard. We could, and then they started writing disco songs, and sure enough.
But like on a really high level.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Okay, so moving into like mixing for, maybe the novice mixer out there, or folks that are trying to improve their own thing. I mean, sometimes sitting down to mix, I can feel almost overwhelmed sometimes. You go through track. I'm not the most organized guy, so I'll track things, and I don't keep great notes, and sometimes tracks are all over the place.
So you're one of those, are you?
A little bit. If I bring it in here, I at least try and clean things up a little bit. But, I think that it would be helpful if I developed maybe more of a framework for my own mixing, for doing things like sub-mixing and bussing, developing consistency. Do you have any organizational tips, like laying out tracks in the DAW a certain way, subgrouping, anything like that you can think of that you like to do?
Well, I can just really talk about behind the big piece of metal here.
Yeah.
I do like things come up in generally the same places. Like I always have the lead vocal for me is always on channel 24 because that's as close to the center of the console as I can get.
Okay.
And
that makes sense. So you're sitting right in the middle doing things like rides.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
So that's my focus. And so I'll put harmony or backing vocals just to the left of those. And then it's usually guitars.
Okay.
After that, because that's the next most important thing to me. Then bass, and then the drums. And interesting thing about the drums, most engineers and mixers do bass drum on channel 1, and then snare drum, and then I don't know, they'll do toms and hi-hat and cymbals. I just do it exactly the opposite. I put the bass drum next. I like the bass drum next to the bass because they should be talking to each other. To me, they should be. That's almost the same. I think of those two things as almost in the same realm.
Sure.
And then the snare drum is the most important drum, right? And so it goes in importance: bass drum, snare drum, toms, hi-hat, overhead, and then the room down there, and then percussion down at the end there.
That's fascinating.
Guitars, and then on the other side, these are all my subgroups. So there's 8 subgroups. There's 8 hard subgroups on this console, and then there's 4 what they call soft groups, which are just computer. You can just assign them to anything.
Okay.
And then down here, the first few faders. This is actually a de-esser patch that I figured out years ago, and it's just it uses the equalizer and the limiter in the console on very fast attack and release time, and then it's I mean, there's a bit, it would take a bit more of an explanation, but it's side-chained over to the vocal channel here. It's just, there's a link between these two channels built into the board just by pressing this little link button. And so that's actually becomes a de-esser, and the fader is the threshold control, so I can actually automate the threshold on the de-esser. And then these three are always subgroups, and they're fed to by because how can I explain this? Buses, it's basically a 24 bus board. So this is actually bus 1 through 24 here, if you hit the subgroup channels. And so these are effect sends. So instead of sending vocal effects directly from the vocal channels, I bus them over here and send. This way I can say, like on this song, I had the verse effects here, and then that switches off when it gets to the chorus, and then the chorus effects come in here. And because the only things on this console that you can automate are the faders and the mutes, that's really the only way I can make those kinds of switches without doing it in the box.
Makes perfect sense, though, and makes it really convenient having them right there, right?
Plus I can ride it, so a lot of times I'll just, depending on what part of the song it is, I'll have different amounts of reverb.
Right.
And things like that. And then past that, then I start with the rest of the, because there's so many backing vocals on this. Here's the oohs and the verse harmonies, the chorus backing vocals, the verse and chorus harmonies, and then this is just the lyrics that she sings, and then this there's just a lot of different things. Some of these, the oohs are subgrouped. Some of these others are subgrouped because there were quite a few more tracks.
Right.
And then the keyboards, and then if there's strings, I put the strings, and then horns will be down there. And then everything, I have a color code for myself. Drums are black, drums and percussion are black, guitars and bass are blue, vocals are red, keyboards are green, strings are purple, horns are like orange. And
makes total sense.
It just sort of, just for efficiency.
Yeah.
Basically, it helps me a little bit.
Putting the lead vocal right center in the, that's incredible, because then you're sitting right center when you're doing things like rides, and it's the most, and then starting with, also grouping the bass and the kick. That's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It just always made sense. I mean, it's funny because I learned to do it the other way, and it actually it made even less sense on analog tape, because the edge track, channel 1 is an edge track. And that would always be, if you were there was going to be a problem with one track, it would be that one.
That one or 24, right? It would disappear, right?
Or 24. And you don't want it to be the bass drum. That's really important.
That's a great point. Yeah.
If it's the hi-hat, it's like, it's not going to make that much difference. Really.
Yeah. God, do you remember those old 12, 14 Akai machines with the Betamax tapes? Do you remember those?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. That's what I learned on.
Yeah.
And I remember it'd be like, where'd the tambourine go? Because we would have put it on 1 or 12.
Right.
And it would disappear, and then you'd have to clean the heads and demagnetize.
Well, that's the thing, and you got to be careful about that. I mean, now that's obviously not a problem. I do this so that the bass drum's next to the bass.
Right.
And this is the things that I need to get at.
So I remember doing some mixing with you a number of years ago, and you mentioned you like to approach vocal tuning very carefully, like only grabbing occasional notes if they're really, offensive, or that kind of thing. Any thoughts on retaining, like, especially these days, like a human element and imperfections in recordings, with everybody like doing things like cutting to click and beat detective and all that stuff?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of keeping music human sounding.
Yeah.
And it's so easy nowadays with DAWs to quantize everything and auto-tune everything to death.
Yeah.
And I just think it makes music boring. It really does. I'll just tune the ones that are kind of irritating. If there's something like, it doesn't sound good. I don't use auto-tune or Melodyne. I use a Waves plugin called
Sound Shifter Pitch. That's what it's called.
Yeah, and
all Waves sound shifter pitch.
Yeah, and it's just a pitch shifter. It doesn't do any automatic. Doesn't sense pitch or anything. You set it to 20 cents, and raise the pitch by 20 cents or whatever.
Oh, okay.
But it's totally glitch free. I mean, it's an incredible sounding thing. I just put it on a track and then I automate it.
Okay.
I just go through with a little automation line.
Right.
And then, this is a little bit flat. I just take that phrase and pitch it up.
Okay.
But a lot of times there's variation within that, and so I don't flatten it out.
Right.
Like you hear the little human variation, but basically it's around the right pitch.
Okay.
And I just do it by ear.
Got it.
So the computer's, the plugin isn't deciding what's in or out. It's me that's making that decision. I guess made me a little bit of a control freak because like I don't like moving faders. If the fader's going to move, I want to be the one moving it, you know. And the same with that. If something's out of tune, I want to be the one deciding if it's out of tune, you know, because some things should be slightly out of tune.
Right.
There's always blue notes and things like that, and you know.
Slightly out of tune and out of time is good stuff sometimes. It makes the downbeat fatter when there's multiple things hitting it.
Exactly. I mean, I mixed so many Stones records. If you ever put Charlie Watts perfectly in time or Keith Richards, it would just sound like garbage.
There'd be no Rolling Stones.
There wouldn't be any Rolling Stones. You wouldn't have that vibe. You know, that's it. It's that kind of sort of fallen over thing. You know, I like that. I love that. I think that's a lot of rock records nowadays are missing that, and that's one of the things that got me out of production, because it was getting to the point where to produce a rock record you had to do that. You had to put everything perfectly in time, perfectly in tune, and I'm like, look, I'm just not interested in that, you know.
Yeah, for a minute there, that's why when Amy Winehouse started happening and things like that, White Stripes, I was like, oh my god,
fantastic,
sounds like
thank
music.
you. I know.
Yeah, I think people are inherently sort of messed up. I mean, we all are. We've all got our issues, and when things are too perfect, it doesn't resonate with us.
Yeah,
because I don't think we're human, you know.
Well, that's how I feel anyway. You know, I mean, I can't speak for anybody else, but just my own taste.
So since my channel subscriber base is mainly guitar players, a lot of guitar players for sure, any great memories or stories you can share, like working with folks like Niall or Stevie Ray Vaughan?
Well, Stevie is just both of them were amazing. You know, I mean, Niall's just a brilliant guitar player, and Stevie would just come in. You know, you see these guitar players that come in with like racks of gear or these massive pedal boards, and Stevie had a super reverb and a guitar cord and a Strat. You know, that was basically it. Just right into I put I think a 57 on the super, and a couple of room mics up.
Wow.
And that was it. That's the sound of Stevie, you know. And what a great, nice guy, and just so easy to work with, and just like first take solos. Yeah. Of course, Bowie would never let anybody do a second take.
Really?
He's like, no, that's perfect. I love that. Okay, next.
That's interesting. Wow. Yeah. Wow. That's I wouldn't have known or guessed. That's really interesting. Wow.
I know you think he would be way more meticulous, but on the Let's Dance album, I can only speak for that record, really. Yeah. That he was like first take, and the vocals were all first takes. Wow. You know.
But I guess when you got people of that caliber, the first take is pretty damn good, right?
Pretty damn good. It was pretty damn. I mean, I remember we cut 3 basic tracks the first day, and Power Station, the session had to end at like 6:30, because then there was always a night session.
Okay.
And so we were working during the day, started about 11, and we got 3 basic tracks, and David hadn't met any of the members of the band yet.
Really?
He only knew Niall.
Oh.
Wow. In fact, he came in early while I was setting up the session. He said, do you know any of the guys in the band? Do you know any of the musicians? I said, yeah, I believe I do, because they're Niall's guys. And, are they good players? I go, yeah, man, they're really good. I mean, imagine that. Here's the artist asking me if the musicians were any good. Asking the sound guy. You know.
Well, I guess that just goes to show that Niall really brought it together, right? I mean, big time.
Well, Niall's amazing. I mean, that guy, he's still amazing.
Still amazing.
And one of the most fun people to work with.
Really?
Oh, he's so funny.
Oh, that's cool.
We just be laughing constantly, and just he's just so outrageously talented, you know.
It was great to see him like really at the forefront a few years ago, you know, when he came back and doing work. It was like so cool. I've got such great respect for him. But I was going to ask you about one specific guitar geeky question. Let's Dance. That dunk, 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 dunk. That was you, right? I mean, that delay. I've always wondered because it's bouncing around.
Yeah, this is an interesting story about that. Because so we recorded that, and I think it's when we were mixing it. I'm not sure, but I know I put it up, and Niall said, look, what I'm playing is kind of boring because all he was playing was dun 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 dun, you know. And he said, can you put like a slap or something on that? It's kind of boring when I'm playing.
Yeah.
I go, yeah, okay. And so we just had a tape slap in those days on a Studer B67. And so I put the tape up and I pushed the return faders up too much, and they're feeding back into each other. Oh. So it's like a ping pong delay, because I think I had it set up for something else. And but I remember I was hitting it way too hard, at least I thought.
Yeah.
And I hadn't timed it either, you know.
Oh, really?
Like it wasn't a digital delay where you could set it for an eighth note or whatever.
Yeah.
And I had some kind of formula worked out on the little vari-speed device, but I hadn't set it. They just wanted to hear something quick. So I put it up, and then that's what it sounded like. And I jumped up and said, oh, let me just fix that, you know. Let me pull the faders down and let me and David and Niall immediately stood up and said, no, that's exactly right. Just leave it.
Wow.
You
It's a
know?
happy accident.
Yeah, total happy accident. I mean, it's the fluke.
Yeah. Well, it's a total hook.
The way Niall tells it, though, I've heard Niall tell exactly the same story, but he's like, yeah, it was boring when I was playing. Then Clearmountain came in and put this incredible delay on everything, and that made it a hit record. Like I knew what I was doing, right? Yeah, thanks, Niall, but I wish.
Well, whatever happened, it sounds epic. So
Yeah,
I'm
right.
glad it happened that way. I always loved the sound of that guitar part. And there's just such space. I mean, it does its thing, and then bass, doom, 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 doom.
Well, it's the arrangement.
Dun, 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 boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, that's such a great arrangement.
Call response.
Between those two guys,
Amazing.
what they came up with is incredible. And the players are so good. You know,
Yeah.
it was such a great experience making that record.
Oh, I
all
can't even
around.
imagine. Yeah. I actually was old enough to go see that tour. I saw
Oh,
it,
yeah.
I remember in Vancouver at the PNE, I think, but it was the Tubes, and Peter Gabriel, I believe, was touring on Security. So it was an amazing show.
Right,
Tubes,
yeah,
Peter
geez.
Bowie. It was unbelievable. And Stevie had dropped out of the tour, and it was Earl Slick playing guitar. I remember. Yeah, it was
He's pretty good too.
He's pretty
great.
Yeah. I feel blessed, man. I really do. So thank you so much for having
All
me.
right,
here.
my pleasure. Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it.
We'll see you guys soon out there in internet land. Please hit subscribe if you haven't. Hit the thumbs up on the video if you dug it. Over and out.
And your heart is full. You don't give up.
That easy, it's in your soul.